Hey everyone, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I am JR, and we are doing a solo episode. A quick thing on Michigan's NIL. There's been a ton of news about Michigan's NIL coming out this week, and I felt like it was a good idea to kind of do a video encompassing all of it and then also giving my take on what Michigan is currently doing. Please do remember to hit the like and subscribe button. It definitely helps me out. And if you want to let me know what you think, whether you agree, disagree, get in the comment section, let me know. I always try to respond to comments and stuff. Sometimes they get a little high up there, but I do try to respond. So please respond and I will get back to you as best I can. Michigan's NIL recently, their name, image, and likeness, and what they were before this season was not great. If you talk to a Michigan fan, many of them were upset with the way the NIL operated and who was running their NIL, stuff like that. Well, they did have the Second Chance Fund or whatever it was called, the fund that they brought the players back, or the Bring Players Back Fund, whatever it was. This was the fund that brought a lot of players like Blake Corum and them back to win that national championship. And they continued to be able to pay players like Will Johnson, Colson Loveland, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, especially through the hardship of Jim Harbaugh moving on to the NFL. I think that their culture was strong enough that those guys stayed for reasons other than financial involvement, but there is also to be said that they were able to pay them, and that definitely helped them out. Bryce Underwood is the one who is making all of the headlines right now with the reported $10.5 million offer, and that it was rejected. Yes, Bryce Underwood put out a picture on his Instagram saying that he would most likely reject the $10.5 million offer. If I got a $10.5 million offer, I would say most likely as well. I'd probably never actually close the door on that because you know what? If LSU completely falls apart and everybody is fired and everybody moves on, well, you have $10 million to look back on, nearly $11 million to look back on, and that's a pretty good thing to go to if nothing else works out. Michigan's new NIL venture may not be exactly as good as some fans think, though, and I know this is going to be a video where I kind of get down on the recent NIL news for Michigan because there was a new partnership that was mentioned as well that we're going to get into here in a minute. But with Bryce Underwood turning down the NIL offer of $10.5 million and the other information that's coming out, I have some questions and I have some things about this that I don't really like for Michigan moving forward. But first, let's make sure we realize what NIL is. NIL is name, image, and likeness. It is the player's ability to monetize their name, image, and likeness. So that can look like doing car commercials. That can look like uh, you know going out and getting paid to go helping your local food bank or whatever. I mean, whatever it is. Sometimes it can be a charity, sometimes it be advertisement, whatever it might be. Whatever you can do for somebody to pay you for your services, your face, your name, image, and likeness, that is what is done. Michigan has, for a good amount of time now, been a program that has lived on the mantra of transformational, not transactional. And as we're starting to see, this mantra is not something they so much want to live by anymore. I always felt like it was kind of a we don't have great NIL, so we're going to try to lean into that and invest our kind of identity in that. But what we're seeing now is just a completely different identity for Michigan. This is a program that was looking at themselves like, yeah, we're not going to pay you the big bucks, but we're going to develop you to now, hey, Miami and Oregon, we're going to get on your level and we are going to be paying players as much as we possibly can, trying to incentivize them more with the paycheck rather than the play on the field. And they are engaging themselves in full out NIL battles as demonstrated by Bryce Underwood. Michigan's increased aggressiveness in NIL focuses, like I said, basically on Bryce Underwood, but there's also other things to get to as well as we continue to look into this. And the number one thing that we look into is the Michigan NIL deal with passes. Now, if you're not familiar with passes, passes is another form of Patreon. Some people have related it to OnlyFans, but this does not allow nudity. So it's not OnlyFans by any means. It is more like Patreon than anything else. I don't think this is as good as some people might think it is. Obviously, the money up front for passes is a wonderful thing. So passes is paying money directly to it's either Michigan or Michigan's NIL, whoever they're paying it to. It's being used for NIL for the players. And how passes works is essentially they are going to have the players who play for Michigan, not just football, basketball, gymnastics, I mean, every sport, they are going to be on passes and have an account. And passes is going to make a portion of that income, and so are the players. Passes works with athletes to receive upfront money, but it may be limited in monetization, unlike Patreon and YouTube. And that's kind of where I get with this next. Passes restricts athletes' opportunities to maximize their full earning potential. Example: social media ventures where players can directly control their revenue streams, right? If a player wants to go to YouTube and say live stream a session with their boys where they're running routes, they can do that. If a player wants to get on Patreon and say, you can get exclusive content of me and my friends playing video games together, they can do that. With this, Michigan players are going to be forced to do those kinds of things with passes, and they are not going to be making the full amount of money from those passes accounts. Passes takes a cut from what the players are making, which again restricts what they can do with their content creation, and then also restricts how much they are going to be able to make. Now, the trade off for this is that Michigan is going to be advertising them, Passes is going to be advertising them quite a bit. But the question is, would you be better off if you weren't getting a cut of your money being taken by passes? I think players would. I think if a player really wants to go out there and create a Patreon account, a passes account, a YouTube account, whatever it is, many of these players gain enough notoriety in recruiting that they are going to be able to do that. And many of these players, even if the school is incentivizing people, hey, go sign up for this person's account, they're probably not going to sign up for your account unless you're a playmaker, unless you're somebody on the team that's making plays and doing big things. The only player you can really think about that really lived off of this kind of fandom or not fandom, this kind of popularity from the fans that never really amounted to anything would be probably the best example would be Mark. What's his name? Mark Titus, who started Club Trill at Ohio State. Now, he was a basketball player and he was a bench player, walk on type of situation, but he was able to gain a lot of popularity and then eventually start, like I said, Club Trill and do those kind of things. But the impact of passes on culture and player attitude has been money focused in recruiting for schools. Teams like Texas A&M and Miami are schools that have seen this type of money focus and selfish, I don't want to call it selfishness, but this focus on money to become a cultural issue inside their locker rooms. Now, you can't really argue with it too much. Miami is what, 9-1 so far this season. They have one loss and they've won the rest of their games. And so from the outside, it looks like they're having a pretty good season. But as most of us can see from watching them, the defense is not very good. And this is a team that was bound to get upset at some point. And even if they do win the ACC, this is a team that is most likely going to get bounced pretty quickly in the playoffs. I guess at the end of the day, you could say doesn't matter. They made the playoffs, charge it to winning, all that kind of stuff. But it's still not a great situation. Oregon is probably your best example of a school that has been able to pay players so much and still maintain a very good culture. I think Oregon is the anomaly, not so much the example for these situations. Look, Dan Lanning comes from Georgia, where they have tons of super talented players. He won a national championship there. He knows how to deal with this stuff. He's seen Kirby Smart deal with this stuff. You could argue Kirby Smart isn't dealing with it very well right now. I think that's probably more of the driving issues than anything else. But Dan Lanning was able to be around Kirby Smart and see the culture of a program that does have many, many talented players. Unfortunately for Sherrone Moore, he's never really been around that. And you say, well, JR, they won a national championship a year ago. I understand that. But that was a team of a lot of players who went late in the draft. That was a team of a lot of players who were really, really selfless and kind of had the identity of their team of we're going to win no matter what. And that was a culture that, yes, Sherrone Moore was there for 3 years and he saw that culture, but he did not build that culture at Michigan. That was something that Jim Harbaugh had started building and was able to get built in those 3 years when he was winning at Michigan at just another level than what Michigan has seen in a 3-year run really before. So my point there is that I don't think Sharon Moore has the experience of a bunch of 5-star players, a bunch of big personalities on his team that he's going to be able to maintain if this passes NIL offer is going to bring in multiple 5-star and 4-star, blue chip recruits. If that's going to be able to bring those in to your program. Now, obviously, Sharon Moore, young guy, charismatic. I think he should be able to figure this out, but is he going to be able to figure it out quick enough? That is a huge thing because, quite honestly, Michigan fans are ready to start winning again. This 5-5 season, I heard a lot of Michigan fans say, "Well, if we go 8-4, it's okay. If we go 9-3, it's okay. Even if we're 7-5, it's okay." That might be all well and good, but you're at the point now where you're 5-5 and you just lost to Indiana. Now, Indiana is not nearly what they have been in the past, but it's still a program that you have dominated in the past and you should be beating. But that's another video what Kirk Cinetti has done with Indiana. But to put this all in perspective, the Bryce Underwood thing is, I think, the thing that kind of wraps this up into a bow, because you saw Bryce Underwood get offered $10.5 million. And what happened when that was communicated to Carter Smith, the Florida quarterback that was committed to Michigan? It was reported that he was first told about the money and that Michigan wanted both Bryce Underwood and Carter Smith in the class together. And this isn't just, lying and saying like, "Oh yeah, we want you both." No, they really did want two quarterbacks in this class, and quite frankly, their quarterback room needed two quarterbacks in this class. But just 2 days later, or 3 days later, whenever the timetable is, but it was very close. Carter Smith decommits from Michigan. And Michigan now is left with no quarterbacks in their class and not even really a hope of Bryce Underwood other than LSU imploding on itself and Bryce Underwood having nowhere else to go but the $10.5 million offer. Boy, would I like to have a $10.5 million offer to fall back on. But you can see when you offer so much money up front to just one player, it can hurt the perception that other players have of the team, of the locker room. And that is what Michigan has to find a way to balance here. And if Michigan does have an NIL of, say, an Oregon or Miami, Texas A&M, they should be able to pay multiple players and pay all of them very well. But you're still going to have to deal with the players that are currently on the team that aren't making as much. Because when you start paying freshmen millions of dollars, and then the guys that are currently on the team, they're making, say, $200K, they're going to say, "What in the world is going on? Why is this freshman, who's not even on my level, making more, making twice, 3 times, maybe 4 times as much as I am?" The long-term effects on team morale and chemistry could be very, very bad. It's going to depend majorly on how Sharon Moore figures these things out. Do I believe in Sharon Moore? No, I don't believe in Sharon Moore. I don't think Sharon Moore is going to figure it out, and I don't think Sharon Moore is the answer for Michigan long term. I understand the optics of firing a person after only their first year, but Michigan's NIL, I don't think it's sustainable under Sharon Moore. I think that Michigan has got to move on to a more experienced coach and somebody who has been used to some of the big personalities and things like that in their locker room, if that's what they want to do. Michigan right now is going through a complete identity change from not transactional and transformational to we are transactional, but we also want to be transformational. They're going to have to figure that out. And Sharon Moore, he's going to be out there trying to prove me wrong, trying to prove the other haters wrong, and say, "I can figure it out. I can get guys on this team, and I can build a winning program." Let me know what you think. Do you think the passes and everything is a good situation for Michigan? Do you think the Bryce Underwood situation maybe is good that they put all that money out there publicly and could show, hey, we are willing to spend money on big recruits? Or are you kind of like me where you're like, yep, this doesn't look so good for Michigan in the long run. Changing your identity this quickly could be a problem. Let me know, everybody. Check us out on Saturday and Sunday and Tuesday nights where we have our football episodes where we talk much more about game recaps, game previews, things like that. A lot more actual football talk and not so much the news talk over there. Greatly appreciate all of you for tuning in. Have a good one. See you next time.